And welcome to today's live tutorial on techniques for successful gas detection. I'm Matt Schwegler along with Ron Lucier. Welcome.
Hey, happy to be back.
Good to have you back. How you been?
Fantastic. You?
I'm doing well.
Excellent.
Thanks for being here. So looking forward to this presentation. Just a quick reminder also that we are recording today's presentation. So recording it. So if you want to view this at a later date, we also have about 24 other topics that are available there as well. You can head to infraredtraining.com/webinars to view that. And if you're interested in attending any one of our training classes, of course, our training schedule for the US and Canada is up at infraredtraining.com/schedule. And for those of you in Europe, the Middle East, or Africa, irtraining.eu is where you can find the very latest schedule there, as well as information on how to register. All right, with me here is Ron Lucier. Ron is our senior instructor. He's also an ASNT NDT Level 3, and you're going to present today on techniques for successful gas detection.
That's correct, yep. Well, decided we wanted to do something a little bit different. In the past, we've just introduced the OGI cameras and some of the basics, and working with a whole bunch of our customers, they've asked, how can I make a better video? And so I just wanted to go over some of the techniques here for successful gas detection. We're not going to talk about the, really much of temperature requirements or camera operation, but just some general techniques that maybe improve your success in reporting successfly. So using the cameras in class is way different than using them in the field. I just did a course in Houston. It was a regional OGI, and we didn't have the opportunity to go out into a gas field, so our portable lab sufficed. But things are different when you get out into the field. The most important thing here is as always, safety is your primary consideration here. And don't violate any rules that could endanger you. We want everybody to go home at night, so safety is primary here. So when you're doing an inspection, there should be a lot of planning. It's probably where you'll make some errors. So to plan, you really have to know what you're going to do. And the first thing to address here is, what is the goal of the inspection? And then are there any specific safety requirements? How long, what technology is available to me? Maybe you have something other than the OGI camera to help. How long are you expected to survey? What components are being inspected? And what are my reporting requirements? And are the environmental conditions acceptable? And boy, that's a full course in and of itself. And how do you know you're finding all the leaks? And so we're going to try to address these in this webinar here. So what's the goal of the inspection? There are several ways to approach an inspection. There could be regulatory compliance, economic loss, periodic inspection, or troubleshooting. And there may be others there, but that's what I came up with. The regulatory compliance, the US EPA has determined that OGI is the best system for emissions reduction, and they published a white paper on that. Local, municipal, and state agencies may or may not endorse OGI for compliance, though they may still rely on the Method 21. The LDAR, the Method 21, has a long established technique and a history of success. So always check with your local environmental health and safety folks and compliance departments for specific direction, and always follow exactly all the requirements specified for you. The economic loss, boy, the volume of a leak is difficult to measure, even estimate. And a leak gas cannot be sold. There's a great technology, the Providence Photonics QL320 tablet and software out there. The recent cameras have been modified for the Q mode. Sometimes seeing the tablet in bright sun is a little hard, so you can go to the Q mode and it records. You set it up and you record all of the requirements necessary for successful detection. And it will output in multiple units for you, such as grams per hour, cc per minute, whatever your preferred units are. And here's just a little demonstration of a 60 gram per hour leak. I did this several months ago when there was some snow outside, snowbank. And yeah, this is blank right now, and there we go. And so set it up in grams per hour, select my run, and I loaded up a sequence I took, and there's the sequence. The dark or the red area there is an area where there's an insufficient delta T for the camera. to image. And so even though this wasn't in perfect conditions, we'll run this and you'll see where I had as close to 60 grams per hour listed on my meter, and this comes up with 58. And I think that's pretty good. And so that is the, we're not going to teach a whole course here in the QL320. Maybe someday that could be a future webinar, but that's an example of an economic loss. And so here's just a quick example of that. How do we calculate that? The retail price was about $1.50 per gallon for propane, and you do all this stuff, 1 pound, 453.6 grams, 24 hours a day, That was $1.16 a day leak. And so that one wouldn't necessarily be an economic. If that was a real leak, that might not be an economic reason to fix that leak if you had expensive resources. So this is a tool that you could use to evaluate when are you going to take action, okay? Now there are periodic inspections. Many sites require quarterly or 6-month or annual surveys. And having a good satellite map on your route is a good idea. Prior to entering an area, though, we always want to do a safety survey. So just sit back, cameras cool down, and what I always tell folks is to survey from a large distance in both auto and HSM. If you don't see a large leak, cut that distance in half and repeat that process. If you still don't see a leak in either of those, what you've eliminated are large and medium-sized leaks, and you know that what you have left are small leaks. And it's always a good idea to record a video as an MP4. Okay, so if you were to start here, trace this path, and do this every single time that you did a survey at a site like this, then you would get very consistent results. And so planning is a really important process. And this is from one of the folks, this video here. We won't necessarily play the whole thing, but it's from a fellow who helped us put together the Quado A presentation. And just as a general site survey, and going into the auto, looking for leaks. I don't believe there was anything here. Maybe a little bit of gas coming up at the top here. We'll see that in HSM. I believe there is a leak up there. I can see that now. But this is just a good example of that. I'll advance this a little bit in the interest of time. And there's the high sensitivity mode, the HSM, indicating on that particular event, I believe, is that there was a gas leak. Okay, so that'd be a good idea of a survey, just a survey, get a big, broad idea of what you're dealing with. And so from here, obviously it would be safe to get as close as practical, as close as allowed to do the surveys. So throughout the whole equipment here, we don't see anything on the separators. Okay, so that's just a simple survey, and I would record this. This was not recorded with a GPS on because this is for public presentation, but for your own work, you have to have that. You should have the time and date and the GPS on here so you can document where you were. Every now and then you want to if you find something, it's a great way to take a single image and make it something that you can send out. There's a lot of photo to sketch software that's out there. And I used a generic photo to sketch piece of software here. And this is from the digital photo right off of Google Earth. And it shows the outlines of the well and the flare and the separators and the tanks. And so this is sometimes easier just to list it. Hey, I did MOV 1215 at this separator here, and 1214 over at that tank. It's just a great way to do that. And you can put that right in your report, and therefore you know exactly where you were. All right, I'll continue on. For troubleshooting, sometimes you're just required to go out there and there's been an alarm and for a leak. Clearly have the issue identified before you get up there to make sure that you can document the site and document the leak. And again, if you're out there for troubleshooting, maybe or maybe not, there'll be a large leak to worry about. So video document the site before you leave, and if perhaps you go out there to locate the leak and then repair it. You should video before you leave of what was repaired. Also, safety requirements. There's a lot of PPE that's required. If there is a Class 1 Div 1 minimum approach, that's 10 feet at many sites. Make sure that you Don't get any closer than that. Identify any H2S hazards, and note the wind speed and direction, and certainly avoid being downwind from any potential leaks, particularly in sour areas. And always identify an emergency contact number in case you find something really bad and you need to get in touch with somebody right away. Other than OGI, you may have airborne ultrasound. UE Systems makes the airborne ultrasound. It can hear leaks. It's not generally used in this industry, but it certainly would work. Your sniffers, your soap bubbles, halogen diode, digital camera, video camera. We're getting a lot of questions these days about drones, the use of drones. And I think at some point we'll have to do a separate webinar just on the drone applications for OGI. If the leaks is very small, it is always a good idea to confirm it. Soap bubbles are great. They're inexpensive, but if you're up on a compressor that's way over 180 Fahrenheit, which is about the temperature limit of it, so you may want to use a sniffer if that's available or some other method. So always confirm your leak. How long are you going to be expected to survey? Boy, that's an open-ended question. Sometimes we don't know. Do you have adequate batteries or a method to recharge them? A simple inverter in your car or your truck can keep the batteries charged. Do you have somebody to help share the load? These cameras are not that heavy, but boy, at the end of the day, they can seem like they're heavy. And are you prepared for an emergency? If you're going way out in the middle of the woods where there's no cell coverage, there's no GPS coverage, you should have some way in case you get injured. A first aid kit is a good thing. And do you have a GPS to assist your location? GPS does not cover 100% of the United States. So there are voids in the GPS, particularly up in Alaska, a lot of locations. And so it's always a good idea to have some other method. What am I reporting compliance? Reporting for compliance is different than for internal use, and that would be determined by the health and safety and legal departments as to what you have for compliance. The APA requires all results to be saved for 5 years, but don't require leak images to be stored for the Quad OA inspections, although in last week's class, everybody stores them, and they're all storing the videos. And they just thought it was a great idea. And you should enable the GPS time and date for your infrared images, and also your digital photos. Not a bad idea to have a handheld GPS with you just to prove where you were. Are the environmental conditions successful? Boy, you just can't pick and choose the date and time to go out and do these. Under ideal conditions, you should seek at least a 2 degrees C delta T with a background. That would be the foliage in the background, the sky, whatever's behind the gas. We need some energy for that gas, whether it's hot or cold, to absorb. I've experimented with temperatures lower than this and had delta T's lower than that, have mixed results. But you pretty much will know from experience when you're in the right condition. So if the temperature of the gas and the temperature of the background are identical, it's going to be very difficult to see that gas leak. Here's an example, courtesy of Providence Photonics. Here's a nice warm wall, and we can see the gas very easily, and against the chain link fence, it's much more difficult. Would be easier in the HSM, but you can see the contrast difference. So warmer or colder is better than very, very close to ambient. Okay. And it's essential to know what gases are leaking, if any. If you're just looking for methane, ethane, propane, that's one thing. If you're in a refinery or a chemical plant and you have other gases, some may be very difficult to impossible to image. Some can only be imaged in the long wave, some in the mid wave. In our course, we use an Excel spreadsheet that's derived from the NIST, the NIST chemistry web book. And so you can consult that, consult our course, or get in touch with me for this gas transmittance data. And going to have about 80 gases listed, and so it's good information. But you really need to know, can you see a particular gas? Courtesy of Craig O'Neill, we have a great image up through here of where the different cameras operate. The GF 320, and we should add in the 620 here. They operate from 3.2 to 3.4 microns, and so on and so forth. The 309, the 343, the 346, the new uncooled GF77, that's mislabeled here. That's a GF77, and the 304, et cetera. So we have a bunch of cameras that are available for the user to take a look at. So sometimes it's a little hard to understand, but you have to match up the spectra of the gas to the camera. Bigger leaks will be observable in the camera auto or manual modes. The smaller leaks may require a tripod in the high sensitivity mode. I always travel with a tripod, and every time we get the opportunity to go out to a customer site, if they don't have one by the time we leave, they want one, or they're gonna get one, because it really helps. And also this thing is scene nuke, and that's explained in our course, and I'll show you the examples here why that would help. And so going back into February, when everything was really cold, so these are not great conditions, because think about the gas is going to get very close to that temperature, and this is why I did this. It created a little gas leak on my lab, and I made it about as small as I can make the lab work. So a very, very small gas leak. And this is that gas leak in auto. And if you look very, very, very closely, if you have a decent resolution, you can start to see maybe a little bit of the gas stream, and it's coming right out of there. But it's not so obvious, and this is because we have bad conditions and on purpose, and then we have a very, very small leak. So this is a challenge to the camera. When we manually tune the leak, now you can start to see that there's a leak there, and we don't see it against a background because that has been saturated low. And so this particular gas leak is very difficult to see. And here's the high sensitivity mode. And we talk about in our courses the difference in the backgrounds. And so this is a very, very, very challenging leak, but pretty much everybody could identify that leak. So that's been manually tuned and put in the high sensitivity mode. Okay?
Speaking of detectable targets and whatnot,
Yeah.
a question just came in here. How far do you recommend the observer be from the equipment? What
It
are the
depends.
considerations for gas?
Well, you want to be as far away, because this is not necessarily stuff you want to breathe in.
Yeah.
Okay, and so it depends on the size of the leak. Are you going to see a quarter of a gram per hour leak at 100 feet? No. Matter of fact, EPA, at least for Quad OA, they ask the user to determine the maximum viewing distance. And that is a long discussion. I found for my eyes and under, with cloudy skies and raining, my max viewing distance was 28 meters, which is 92 feet,
Okay.
for a 60 gram an hour leak.
Okay.
And so, but that was a real challenge. You know, there's in FLIR.com/OGI, I believe we have the reports and some data for wind speed and distance, and of course wind speed enters into this as well. That's very difficult, but you want to get as close as safe to do, and not put yourself in danger. Now we teach this. The cameras have to be nuked. The nuke is a non-uniformity correction, and generally we teach you keep the lens cap on, hold the A&M button down for 1 second. That nukes the camera. Well, if you have the camera on a tripod, and you nuke it with the lens cap off, that's what's called a scene nuke. And since the snowbank and the lab, they stay in one area, the only thing that you can see changing here is the movement of the gas. And that's a technique that I've used, since we came out with these cameras, to try to help locate the exact source of small leaks. And then one step further, we can do the scene nuke, and you can still put this in high sensitivity mode. And so that's the scene nuke with the HSM. And very difficult to see. But there is you'll see here we're going to change the range of the HSM, going up to the higher levels, HSM of 7. And the gas leak should be a little bit easier to see here. There we go, we can just see it. There we go, there's the HSM and the scene nuke. And so that's basically the previous video, the scene nuke in HSM, the high sensitivity mode. And that really enhances. And you can also see convection coming off the lab and evaporation of snow in the background. And so that puts the camera just about the most sensitive it can possibly be. And so finding small leaks is always a challenge, and finding large leaks is fairly easy. Okay? So the HSM and scene nuke, I would say, are essential that you have the camera on a tripod. And yeah, tripods can be heavy and difficult and a pain to drag around, but that is, it's really necessary for this particular technique. Here's another example. This is you're positioning your camera so you can see a natural gas leak. And this was taken with an unfiltered long wave camera several years ago. And the sky, the cloud movement here can obscure the leak, but there was a very, very minor, we could detect it, kind of a minor leak right there. This is up at a vent line. And so, you can locate it. But here there's the same thing in high sensitivity mode. Okay, and this would be very typical of of an image that you would get from the GF77 of that particular leak. And we can see changes in moisture, wind going by. And so it's just another way to take a look at a leak. Also know that some components are designed to leak. This is a level controller for a separator, and this is venting out. It is designed to vent. It is not part of Quad OA. It's an exception unless it's blowing continuously, I believe. And so, but this is a large source of leaks just looking over. And these things are designed that way. If they didn't have any way to vent the gas, they couldn't open and close the valve. And so there's a visual image of that. And make sure that you have really good focus. And this is the top of another gas operated or air operated valve. High sensitivity mode, handheld, I'm not a fan of. But I don't do this on a daily basis. I don't do the inspections on a daily basis. The little leak was right there, and very hard to hold that camera steady. The HSM is best when the camera is steady, but you can clearly see the leak, and it was great focus for the customer who took that video. And a couple other things here. Do not, if at all possible, put your camera tripod right on the compressor skid. I mean, these things are big and noisy, and they vibrate a lot, and everything just shakes. Yeah. And so particularly with a high sensitivity mode, you can get a jiggly video, and you go, well, wait a minute, what's gas and what's not? And so there was a little gas leak sitting back there. That's all that was off that flange, I believe. In summary, and we just wanted to give you a few techniques here, checklists. If you're going to do this, or if you are doing this on a professional basis, having a good checklist, doing the same routine over and over and over, like a airline pilot, thankfully they fly the planes very safely. They do so by checklist. They could probably tell you every step, but they go through that checklist every time. And I would be my recommendation that you write a good plan, you write a good inspection plan, and you write a checklist, and you do it same way every time, and you'll have great results. So that's it.
Great suggestion.
All righty.
Perfect. So we have recorded today's session. If you go to infraredtraining.com/webinars, there's this topic and about 24 others that'll be up there. We'll get this up probably in the next couple of weeks, next few weeks or so. I know some of you were having some audio issues as it was dropping out. We hopefully have the local track here, and we'll try to lay that over and get that in there. And the videos, by the way, and the recording should also play a little more smoothly.
Yep.
It's just tough with the web traffic sometimes. So there's that. There's the live upcoming webinars. In fact, this afternoon I'll be on with John Wagner here with NFPA 70E. That's coming up at about 2 o'clock Eastern. So there's that. Of course, we're very active on social media. Join us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, or LinkedIn for the very latest from ITC. Special training announcements, important updates, valuable tips, a whole bunch of good stuff that we share there. And if you have questions, again, for Ron, post-webinar here today, you can email Ron there, ron.lucier@infraredtraining.com, or myself for general questions or training-related questions that you might have. So again, if you want to send questions in right now, we can take those here via the Q&A panel. I know that this particular, maybe as we're waiting for some questions to come in, Ron, this class, our OGI class, maybe just briefly, what are they going to get out of a level 1 OGI?
Well, one, learn how to use the camera.
Yep.
That's the most important thing. And every week, the last class I did in Houston, somebody came in, they said, I was given this black box last week, and I don't know even what it is.
What do I do with it?
And so we teach you how to use the camera, why you want to use the camera, some of the history, and this is included, how to be successful at detecting gas leaks. They're not easy.
No, it does not appear to be.
This is a very, very difficult thing, and the other reason why you want to go to class is EPA says you have to document that the inspectors have had adequate training. They don't say to come to our class, but you have to document the the inspector's training. And so we touch on a lot of things and a lot of applications as well. We cover both the hydrocarbon applications, some in the electric utility switchgear stuff, and some carbon dioxide applications in the class.
Great.
Yep.
Well, a question that came in from David, is there a minimum pressure differential that's needed for gas detection?
I don't think so. I've seen leaks come out that are incredibly small, and we had a really hard time with soap bubbles.
Ah.
Yeah, and that goes back to like 2008, 2000. Well, prior to this generation of camera, the old Navy SEAL camera, we were soap bubbling connections, and they were barely making bubbles, but we were able to see the gas leak. We were under ideal conditions, I should say.
Well, what are some of those challenges? We talked about the tripod, stability, things like that. What are your top things that that we say to students in the class? Like if you had to pick your top 5 biggest challenges that we're running into.
Well, I think the biggest thing is just getting the resources available.
Yeah.
Try to get the camera. These cameras are available, but you might have to share a camera with somebody else. And so your camera skills drop off fairly quickly. We have up on our website, the fleer.box.com/ITC resources website, I have posted quick start guides that are available for the GF cameras. And so that gives you a very, very simple way to start the camera up, and they're also included in the course manual. So we always recommend folks print those out, laminate them, stick them in the manual so they know what they have. So
Okay.
that's a really big challenge. And then it kind of gets boring doing this, as I understand, but you're also doing something great for your company because you'll identify lost gas that could be used. Great for the environment because we don't want this stuff in our environment,
Yeah.
and I think everybody wins. Yeah, and from a safety standpoint, you're improving the safety of the area.
A question from Daniel, or I think Daniel came in here. At what wind speed do you consider to not be good conditions for a survey?
That is something I don't know. I think we published a certain, I think it was above 20 miles an hour at a certain distance. It was a real challenge. But if you're relatively close, I've been under 20, 30 mile an hour conditions.
I was going to say, what's your experience in the field from these classes?
In Wyoming, we had some leaks that we had identified, and the wind was blowing 25, 30 miles an hour. We had to be relatively close. We were within, we're in the safe distance. But the other option there is to use the telephoto lenses that are available for the camera. So always having a 2x or the 3x, or almost 4x lens will go on these cameras, with the exception of the GFX. You have to order those, one or the other, because that's the Class 1 Div 2 camera. But with the GF320, you can actually swap the lenses out and see something at a distance like you're much closer, because that's basically telephoto.
Okay.
Yeah.
Karen was asking, is there a minimum dwell time that should be maintained to ensure you've identified if a leak is truly not present on a component? I guess, how long do you hang out?
How long you look at it?
Yeah.
The only requirement that I know from EPA is they wanted folks to look at, I believe it was, not sure if it's in the regulation anymore, it was transmission storage tanks. They wanted a 5-minute observation time, and you do not need a 5-minute observation time with these cameras. Okay. If you sat back and you looked at a flange or a valve stem or something, and if you don't see a leak within, I'd say 15 to 20 seconds, there probably isn't a leak there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does ITC have any template camera setup checklists? I guess you got to come to class for that.
No, we have that.
We have it online.
Yeah. And you can email me. I can send the GF Quick Start guide. That was Craig O'Neill was the first one to create that, and they're fantastic. We've made a few modifications to it.
Good.
So
Great.
Happy to send those out. Yeah.
Mario was wondering, are there any recommendations for using an OGI camera to view distant offshore leaks in contrast with, let's say, the water, the ocean, or overcast conditions?
Distance is an issue, because if you're really far away,
it's got to be a big leak.
It's got to be a big leak, and also you have that humidity that's attenuating your image. So you have to be relatively close. So I don't know what sort of distance would be too far to worry about.
To what degree does rain affect a survey?
Well, I have a video in my course when it was raining. We were down in New York City, and so heavy overcast, and this was a leak that was in front of a lady's house, and it was coming from a valve in the street, and it went underneath the asphalt about 20 feet, came up through cracks in the asphalt. We were able to image that in the rain.
No kidding.
In the rain, and the cameras are IP54 rated.
Okay.
The intrusion protection. So you know, in a thunderstorm, you don't want to be out there.
Yeah.
But light sprinkle, I don't have any
no
issues
kidding.
with it. Same thing with snow. Yeah.
From John, is there such thing as a website or video that identifies different gas volumes that one can use as a reference when using the camera?
I'm not sure. The EPA standard that we certify the cameras to is a 50-50 mixture of methane and propane at 10,000 ppm, which is what, 1% diluted? Yeah, 1% diluted. And so, but the standard says you can use any gas that you can see that is more than 98% concentration. So butane or propane is a good use.
I think he was getting at possibly using video to compare that video versus a known set of volumes.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, we don't have any. I don't have anything like that.
Okay.
That'd be a great paper at some point. Yeah.
Okay. Good, great questions.
Cool.
Fascinating.
Excellent. Fantastic. Yeah. These are the best ones we've had.
This has been great. This has been good. We appreciate it. I think we'll wrap it up on that.
Excellent.
No, excellent. Thank you, Ron, for the
my
presentation. Remember, we've recorded today's webinar, so if you want to watch this for playback at a later date, you can go to infraredtraining.com/webinars, where you'll find this and about 24 other topics that are available for viewing at any time. Of course, for future webinar announcements, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, or Instagram. And then for questions from today's presentation, if you want to get back to Ron or myself, here are our email addresses. And we'll certainly follow up with you. And let's not forget Trish.
Yes.
We'll get information to her as well.
Yeah, cool.
Appreciate it, Ron. Thanks
Very
for your
good.
time.
Hey,
thanks for joining us, folks. And we'll see you online again soon at a future live webinar here from the Infrared Training Center. Have a great day.
Take care.